welcome to Between Two Ellens. I'm Ellen Poggemiller with House District 88.
Ellen Hefner, House District 87.
So today it's a little bit different. We just got off of a deadline week, which is a very busy, crazy time period. So we wanted to kind of just do a brief overview of what that looks like, some highs and lows, and yeah. So deadline week. How would you tell someone in one word?
Finishing up all your work with a deadline.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of work means hundreds and hundreds of bills, which could be turned into laws. So there's questions and there's rules and procedures and amendments and changes. So
many amendments.
So many amendments we had this time. And then working, we all have to kind of work together on this. So I think there's a lot to it.
Yeah, and then it's also late nights, and that's, it kind of feels like finals week during college, right? Like you're just cramming all of this in. There's food, there's camaraderie, there's friction, there's stress. Celebration, all of the emotions kind of take place that week. And I like what you talk about. So at the Capitol, the people outside of the legislature is the staff. And if you want to talk a little bit about what deadline week is for staff too.
It's not just us up there by ourselves doing it. We couldn't do it alone. There is the clerk staff and there's the parliamentarian and his staff. And then of course the sergeants who are there to protect us and open up the doors and make sure that the rules are happening and everyone's minding themselves. And so if we run late nights, I think one night was till 12:30 in the morning, they also have to stay. But what I really like about it is that we all come together at around 5:30. The floor leader, Josh West, said we're going to have the sergeants take a seat. And we all applauded. And then dinner was served and we suspended the rules so we could eat on the floor. But the rule is, and we always support it, is that staff and the sergeants go first. So we wait about 15, 20 minutes so they can get through the line and then we take our plates next. So I do love that we do. There are some really great things about that happen in that chamber and I really like that.
And it's kind of like the organization of what keeps us going.
That's right. That's
right. So in that time period, I think we had about 400 bills that we ended up passing that will be going over to the Senate. We've heard that Senate is much less. I think max they might be 300. They're sending over to the House. And so what's a highlight of a bill that you got through, Ellen?
Well, the one that I had 4 that are going over to the Senate, and of course all really good. But I think this one was the one domestic violence bill. I had 2. One I'm going to work on a little bit and bring a lot of other people along. It's difficult legislation.
Yeah.
And so the committee work was a lot of work. So I've been working those since we started. A lot of conversations, a lot of education, a lot of help from Judge Sarah Bondurant in Oklahoma County. And she would come up to the Capitol and help advocates who I love, victims that really were steady in coming up to the Capitol. And I, since it's a GPS bill, that if someone, the most violent who have a VPO, may be waiting for a criminal case, if they have a GPS monitor on them, that we can do that with different funds. We're making it work so that money can go towards the GPS to protect. That's like the most vulnerable time.
And so it specifically gives a person so that the victim will know where that person is.
That's right. It's reverse tracking. But when people hear tracking, that was something that I really had to educate on. And so I was nervous. It was the last day and we're all exhausted. And we've seen bills go down. A couple Democrat bills have not made it. And it was really nerve-wracking, but when I looked up at the board, which is right above the speaker's chair, it's this board with all of our names on it, and we have 3 buttons on our desk. One is right to speak, which is white, and then there's a yay and there's a nay. and it all went green.
Yeah, which is a big deal because,
It's a big deal.
you know, there's, we have some members that we jokingly call the no caucus. They're 90% going to be against it. They kind of just have fundamental values about what government should do, and most of it isn't what we're trying to do. So we call them jokingly the no caucus. So it's always a big win to look up and see the overwhelming support.
It really felt good. And so I'm really proud of the chamber. I mean, really proud of my colleagues, and especially couldn't do it without these guys.
I know. Yeah, you're cheering your Dems on definitely harder than you are the Republicans. So I think my bill that I'm most excited about, House Bill 3066, one of the cool things about being a new legislator is really just learning about all the different agencies that we have that are doing the work of the state, but maybe you never knew they existed. And so for me, this was the Healthcare Workforce Training Commission, really focused on getting primary care practitioners out to rural and underserved communities. And so this bill takes federal money and will go to them $7.5 million over 5 years, and will support getting behavioral health care clinicians out to rural communities. And the goal is to recruit, retain them to stay there and hopefully practice there, you know, and really build up some mental health supports for rural Oklahomans. So
I just love that.
That was a pretty exciting one. It had an emergency on it. Emergency is when you have to pass the bill with 68 votes. So all of the bills I had passed before, one of them, had to just get to 51. So that's a much bigger hurdle to get to 68. So you have to work those a little bit harder. And like I said, as soon as you're done presenting, you're looking up at the board, making sure that you got to that count.
And then all this adrenaline because of the pressure, not just of we're exhausted because of the week, but from the first time that we all sat in the chamber this session, it's this, you know, with understanding all these advocates and victims that want this bill to happen, it's a lot of pressure, and so then all of a sudden you feel a little bit better, and you've been holding all that in tight. You know, I wish I knew what the future was, because then I would have put an emergency on that bill. But sometimes you don't know, because if you put an emergency on a bill, sometimes they won't hear it, and sometimes you don't know what a chairman will go for or not. So I'm happy that it's passed, and especially it's got to go to the Senate too. So we'll see what happens. But I'm told the Senate author, Senator Coleman, I said I'll work as hard over here as I did over there. So
absolutely. One other bill I wanted to talk about, which is the House Democratic Caucus had really promoted this affordability platform. And one of the bills Representative Amanda Clinton had worked on was around data centers, and she ended up partnering with Representative Bowles on House Bill 2992, which is a protect ratepayers from data centers bill. And so that was a huge win for us, something that we supported and are grateful when bills are overwhelmingly passed that are really going to directly affect affordability in our state.
Yeah. Now, we said that we were those wins, and we're not going to call these other ones losers, but I think it just brings some concern, and it will take all you voters out there a little more time to figure it out too, and it's about HJRs. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about what it is?
Yeah, so HJRs are one way that the legislature can put state questions on the ballot. What's unique is that we get to dictate when those take place. So which election they take place, June, August, and November are the upcoming elections. And, you know, with just a simple majority, you can get those to the electorate. So our one I was most concerned about was focused on the Constitutional Convention. In our Constitution currently, we are supposed to have a Constitutional Convention every 20 years. We've never had one since, you know, we became a state. And so this would bring that back. The part that I struggle with, one, is that this went through no committee. It went straight to the House floor, which shouldn't happen. Two, it is just Republican makeup outside of the chief of the Supreme Court that will be deciding what we discuss in the convention, and it will start January 5th of 2027. So when you talk about these constitutional conventions, it's really supposed to be this opportunity where we go out to the people, we talk to them about what you want changed, and we come back together and make those changes. Well, this bill won't be voted on until November, and then supposedly we're going to engage with people, and then January 5th kind of come to this constitutional convention, even though the work that we're really doing, we can still do while we're in session.
But it'll miss all the deadlines if there's actually some change that we could, because we start deadlines for our bills when we start them in December. So it's like, again, a little concerning that has more questions. Sometimes you hear it and you go, yeah, that sounds good, but there's more to it, which brings up another HJR that I have some concern over. Amongst others, there's other ones. There's ones to get rid of the expansion in Medicaid, which overwhelmingly, everyone voted for, but not voted for. But it's this TSET bill that's out there. TSET is the tobacco settlement given to all states after a lawsuit, and so we ended up with a nice big chunk of money that we continually get, and it's set in a trust. It's a public trust. But it only became a public trust because it went to a vote of the people, and you guys said, yes, we want that trust. And where the money's supposed to go is for health outcomes. Mm-hmm. And so for years, that was back in 2020 that was put into place. It's got a board of investors and also has a board of directors. Now, the board of directors served for 7 years. And last year, there was a little bit of a problem that the leadership and the majority they weren't working together
with TSET board.
With the TSET board mm-hmm. to try. They wanted some of the TSET money to go to. It was it was for health, and so this year we're kind of blowing it up a bit. Instead of looking at like there's an HJR of changing the board of directors to different years, which we didn't hear that HJR, but to change it from 7 years to 5, which I think is a good start. It's just kind of taking it apart. Let's break it down. 30% will go to...
35% I think goes to the Department of Health to kind of do the legacy fund program, mm-hmm. kind of the work that TSET already does. Mm-hmm. And then part of it goes to investment.
That part of it goes to an investment. The author was saying to grow it.
Mm-hmm. And then part of it goes to expand OLAP. OLAP is our kind of promise to Oklahoma students based on your income and grades that you can go... with a certain amount of money to a state college or to a career tech in the state.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I like OLAP. Oklahoma's Promise is great. With this money, he says by a certain year that all kids could go to, if they choose to use the money to go to college or career tech. I don't see anything wrong with that. The problem is when this HJR, which is HJR 1077, when it came to the Rules Committee, which is I serve on, Rules is different. There's only rules, they used to say, is where bills went to die. This did not happen this year. That's where all the HJRs were. And in there, I was talking to the author about it. And he's putting in there something to kind of thinks that it's going to be invested in a way that'll make more money. Right. Which I don't think it will. It's a very risky fund. It's something that if we had money to spare, that we would, that's what we would play around with. We don't have any money to play around with, and that capital, venture capital investments up to 10% aggregate is now going to be on a state ballot for you guys to answer. I think it's too risky. I think diversification would protect against risk, and this is risk in there. And then in that committee, when he was answering questions, he says we had to find money. We wouldn't have to find money if our income would satisfy what our bills are and what our needs are. And so right now, we're not making enough income. He also says our revenue is high. Currently, for our revenues, we don't have that money to spend. Remember, we get our budget set the next year. And so we didn't find out how much money we had to spend until February. And so now that's only the money we are allotted to balance our budget, our one constitutional that we're supposed to do. But it has nothing to do with our revenue. This year, what we're looking at, we're finding money because we don't have enough to spend on what we want.
Yeah, honestly, what it boils down to. And I think as we had conversations with it on the floor, the bottom line was Republicans want that to go to the vote of the people. And so when we talk about important elections, they are planning to put the elections at this point in August and November. November is a time where we're all going to be there. There's a ton of state elections. Our own elections will, could be in November. But August is most likely a Republican primary runoff election, and that's it. And so it's a very low turnout election. And so that's purposeful. And so part of this opportunity now is for us to continue to educate people on what does this process look like? What are these bills coming out? And what do these state questions do? And so I'm sure on the pod we'll continue to elevate this as we keep going along.
We had brought up amendments, the only amendments and when the bill, this constitutional convention came to the floor, it doesn't just happen. Rules have to be suspended, which means that we're not following the rules that we all have to follow. We're suspending those rules so that something could be heard on the floor because of our process or what the rules are. That's kind of interesting. Interesting to the point that some of these things are last minute.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah,
because if it wasn't, then it would be following the regular path. The other thing about an amendment is we had to do another bill like that. Because originally when that HJR was in there, it was going to go to the general election, and they had to go back and change it to August. So here's another thing: when we're all put under this really tight
deadline,
and if we don't have the ability to break those rules, and so some of this is last minute stuff, and of course, since it's an election year, some of the things are happening. It wasn't like last session at all.
No.
Last session, I think we only suspended rule once. I think something like that. It was just
very limited. But
very limited. This was.
I was guilty too. I had to file the amendment for the House floor. So
well, she filed an amendment, but it was 24 hours. They didn't have to suspend rules to hear it.
No, we
but
didn't.
I would talk about suspending of rules last year was
true.
hardly, and amendments were almost every one that we were hearing. So bad though that it was funny. I'm sorry, I'm going long on this, but you'd be like, "Are you sure Amendment 1? Did we vote on Amendment 1?"
Yeah, it was. Everybody was confused.
Everyone was confused on what we were reading, which also is kind of when you're tired and
you have to go
find it, and then there's sometimes not enough time that you can go, wait, I need to ask someone about this.
Yeah.
So
next week we will take the Senate bills and we will start going through this. I know that the Republican House floor team is meeting on Sunday. They said to go through the bills and start assigning them to committees. So we will start committee work next week.
There we go.
Okay, questions. We end with a question. I guess my question, and a stressful time like this, what do you do to unwind, Ellen?
I continued to work after we adjourned yesterday, but then all day today, or most of the day before I met you, I was volunteering at the World. It's the ranking for canoe and kayak. We have that right down the street at River Sport. And I was out in the wind and the cold. Look at my hair's all windy. But I will tell you, if volunteering is such a good thing to do, if I wouldn't have done it, I probably would have been thinking about some votes and stuff. And at least now I got to be outside and watch some really great races.
Yeah, I immediately, sunshine is my happy place. So had a meeting after work, or after session ended on Thursday, and then took my dog for a walk, and I just soaked in that sun. So, well, anyway, we are so grateful for you joining us. We'll be back next week. We don't know who our guest is. We're going to have to look at the calendar and see who's at the Capitol with us.
That's right. Follow us. I mean, really, Instagram, or let us know. We would love to know about some guests too. What are you interested, or what questions do you have? We do have a live show coming up.
Yes.
We'll keep plugging that. I think it's April 13th. But we love having you there. We love when you tune in. And then tell your friends. We appreciate you listening to Between Two Ellens.
All right. Have a great week.
Thanks. Have a great week.